What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Mayo Media Network. We're doing something a little bit different today. Obviously, you see I don't have DT next to me, usually breaking down the UFC card. I have Dayton, though, on his day off producing the show, so we appreciate him for that. We got a big weekend in combat sports, right? We have, obviously, UFC Noche, and we do have a very big boxing card. Something that's near and dear to my heart. Anybody who knows that follows me knows this is my roots. I was pretty much born out of the womb. Under the boxing umbrella. So these kind of fights strike a chord with me. What I want to do today is I want to break this fight down in a really economical and logistic manner. I want to let you guys know the transparency and the truth behind some of these fights, why it's happening. Is it good for the sport? Should it be the fight that's happening? And so on and so forth. And then obviously I'll get into the breakdown. There's a couple fights on this card that I want you to look at to target outside of the main event that are very, very good that we'll discuss. But first off, let's start with this fight. Now, anybody who knows boxing or is a casual to boxing, you obviously know the name Canelo Alvarez. He's a household name. He is kind of the face of boxing. He's been fighting for years, beating everybody that you can imagine. But the problem is, as he's been getting older, this is a guy who has been known to cherry pick a little bit. You're looking at the other side, Terence Crawford. Now, even though he's not the super household name, if you are a combat sports enthusiast and you follow boxing at all, you know who Terence Crawford is. Terence Crawford obviously is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters, if not the pound-for-pound fighter, best pound-for-pound fighter in boxing today. Second only to maybe Inoue. I would put them 1A, 1B. You can kind of shuffle them wherever you want. Now you say, well, Mike, why isn't Canelo in there if he's kind of the A side of this fight? When you're talking overall boxing prowess, you're not talking about weights. You're just talking about their actual boxing prowess, pound for pound. It's Inoue and Crawford, and there's not a close second. Now, this is a huge fight because you're getting the probably the best pound for pound, 1A or 1B in Crawford, and you're getting the face of boxing in Canelo. And everyone's like, wow, what a fight. This is a historical fight. On paper and name-wise, they're absolutely correct. Should this fight actually be happening? No, this fight should not be happening. The fight that should be happening is Canelo versus David Benavidez. David Benavidez has been clamoring for this fight. David Benavidez is his size, same weight division, same everything. This at one point in time, David Benavidez was his mandatory. In boxing, I don't know if you guys know, but there are mandatories. This was his mandatory. He never fought his mandatory. So there are guys that he should be fighting that he's kind of avoiding. The Morels, the Benavidez's and stuff like that, and he'll take his chances in other spots. For instance, he fought a boxer in his last fight who was a Cuban boxer. Afterwards, he complained. He complained that, oh, well, this guy he didn't want to fight. I want to fight somebody who wants to actually fight me. This guy was running the whole time. Now you're talking about a multi-million-dollar empire in Canelo Alvarez. The money that this guy, he's making over $100 million for this fight alone. So this is a guy who's pulling in some big numbers purse-wise. You're not going to sit here and you're not going to tell me that his camp did not know that he was fighting a Cuban-style fighter who the Cuban-style fighters, that's what they do. They literally run, they drift. They just look to kind of pick and poke and prod and just get out of dodge. You signed to fight a Cuban fighter, and that's exactly what you got. But that was his way of tuning him up for this fight. That was a way for getting some ring time, getting some ring work where there's not going to be initial firepower coming back at him. So initially, it's kind of a tune-up fight, but Canelo has been known to do that as of late. His fight against Bivol, he jumped up and tried to test himself there, but there was really no consequence for him. If he wins that fight, great. He went up and he beat Bivol. But if he loses that fight, he wasn't supposed to lose that fight. He was supposed to lose that fight because he was so much smaller. After the Bivol fight, there was a lot of circulation going around about this fight before this fight was even signed in numerous interviews. And they said, do you want to fight a Terence Crawford? And he said, well, what would this fight do for me? What would this fight do for me? He's smaller than me. Like, I have nothing to gain from this fight. These are all things you could look up. These are all things that are actually documented. And now this fight is signed. Now, all of a sudden, this is a legacy fight. This is, if I beat him, I beat Terence Crawford. Well, what happened before when you said he's a smaller guy? Now, when I mean a smaller guy, I'm not talking about one weight division. I'm not talking about two weight divisions. I'm talking about 3 weight divisions. This is a 3 weight division jump. This is a welterweight fighting a super middleweight, who ultimately even bumped up to a light heavyweight at one point. So this is a major, major step up. So it's not, you can't look at so much, well, you got the best pound for pound boxer in our era right now fighting, a guy in Canelo who's not the best pound for pound. you got to, there's certain aspects where size does matter. Like, you really got to look into that and say, well, what is the angle here? What is the shift here? What, why is Canelo even taking this fight? Because there is an angle, almost like the Misfits boxing, the Jake Paul stuff. Like, there is angles with why he's fighting who he's fighting, why he's, taking this name, but there's a hole in his game here. Like, there are angles. Canelo's very strategic and very calculated. So he knows going into the jump, he has the advantage already size-wise. He's extremely durable. Canelo Alvarez has never been buckled in his career. He's been hit with some big shots. He's been hit shots with Gennady Golovkin. He's been hit by Bivol. He's been hit by some pretty heavy hitters. They were never able to buckle him. So now he's looking at this. Well, I'm getting, Crawford, this titan, this guy that the boxing world looks at him as like a generational fighter, which he is, brilliant. And if I beat him, this is the way I'm going to look. I beat this guy. And he's factoring all these things in. His camp is factoring all these things in. The smaller guy, is he really going to be able to put it on me? Is he really going to be able to knock me out? Can I bully ball him in there a little bit? Like, there are pros and cons to this. Now, I was born and raised in a family where my nono and my father and my uncle, and under the umbrella where the boxer always beats the puncher. And I know you always hear me say that. The boxer always beats the puncher. The boxer always beats the puncher. Historical data will tell you that does stand to be true. I mean, if you look at some of the greatest fights ever, I mean, Muhammad Ali against Big George Foreman, the boxer beat the puncher. Yes, there's times where the puncher does win. But a lot of the historical data will show the more slick, more technical boxer will win. Why? MMA is much different than boxing. Okay. In MMA, you can be on the feet. You can get stung on your feet. You have multiple detour routes to go, right? You have multiple detour routes to go. You can level change, take the guy down. You could clam up against him on the cage and you're not being broken up right away. You can get an inside trip, land on top of him and collect your webs again. The fights aren't as long as boxing are. So like, there's a lot of different multiple escape routes that you can have to kind of, if you get stung or if you get buzzed, you have detours to go. Boxing, you don't. You got to fight. If you get stung on the feet in boxing, you have to fight. You have to push forward. You have to have the wherewithal to shell up and move and set traps and avoid traps. It's completely different. You got to fight your way out. So that's the technical boxer usually arises in those moments, because if a technical boxer buzzes a puncher, the puncher really just knows one thing: I got to load up and I got to fight my way out. Where the technical boxer, he's moving, he's dipping, he's dodging, and he's able to circulate around the ring a little bit more. So it is a little bit different. When I look at the way this, fight is matched up, am I as excited about it as the masses? No, I'm not. And, that's means a lot coming from me, someone who pushes boxing feverishly. Like, I want everybody to watch boxing. I want everyone to, love and endear boxing, because it really is a beautiful sport. It is really a science. But when I look at this fight, I just see a lot of question marks on both sides. These guys are a little bit older now. They're a little bit past their prime. A lot of people are like, wow, Crawford's 37 years old. Like, there was people that were calling me. It was like, I had no idea he was 37. Yeah, he's 37. So he's a little bit, he's coming towards the end of his road. Canelo's been in so many fights. He's coming to the end of his road. So maybe 4 years ago, if these guys were the same weight class and they were fighting, you're looking at a monster fight. I mean, a tremendous fight. I don't know what to expect here. And I'm going to be very transparent with you when I'm talking about how I would approach this from a wagering standpoint, how I would approach it from a prediction standpoint. If anybody sits here and tells you that they know for 100% who's going to win, they're just throwing false analysis, to look smart. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to look smart. Well, Canelo did this and Canelo did that, and Crawford can do this. Because the fact of the matter is you've never seen a couple things here. You've never seen Canelo against a guy at this level. Canelo has not looked good in the past 2 years. 2023, I actually thought Canelo was on the borderline getting ready to retire. Like, his fights just look awful. He has been losing a lot of steam down the stretch. And he just hasn't looked like the dominant guy. He looks like he has lost his hunger and he's just trying to collect paychecks and just do what he needs to do to win, whether it's in camp, whether it's in the fight itself. Like, he hasn't been that same guy. And what he's doing now, because he earned it, because he like earned it, is he's doing the things that Mayweather did to him. Like, for example, Mayweather, when he fought Canelo, he was a genius at cherry picking. He said he saw this guy in Canelo and said, look, this kid is going to be good. He's going to be very good. So I'm going to fight him when he's young and raw. I'm going to get him now, because when I beat him, that's going to be on my record that I beat Canelo. And then he's going to go off to be this great champion, but it's always going to say that Mayweather beat him. So there's always times and places when to pick fights. The greats do it. It's just a part of the sport. This is what this is. This is why Dana White coming to the sport it could be a great thing, and we'll talk about that later. But so when you look at the pros and cons of it, then you look at the pros of Crawford, and you say the much better boxer, the much smarter boxer, the boxer who he starts off a little bit slower as well. You got those weights wrong too, David. It should be flipped. Crawford's a smaller guy, but it's okay. When you look at the bonuses of this guy, like this guy, he does everything that Canelo doesn't. He does start a little slow, but he knows how to compartmentalize his game plan. He knows how to turn it on at the end down the stretch, and that's how he usually wins his fights. He usually puts on a slow cook. It's like he puts you in a slow cooker, and then all of a sudden he steps on the gas and he just starts piecing you apart. He's brilliant. The guy's a brilliant boxer, and for his weight class, he does have good power. He does have good power because he knows how to hit his target. He knows how to put punches and bunches. He knows how to bait traps, and everything is just one big blueprint as the fight goes on. And he does not care what the crowd thinks. He does whatever it takes to win. So these are all great things, but the things we haven't seen from him with all this greatness, we have never seen him take body shots from a guy like Canelo. We have never seen him try to sting people on multiple occasions and just realize, I can't hurt this guy, because Canelo's got a great chin, one of the best I've seen in my time. I can't hurt this guy. What happens if he's putting it on Canelo and Canelo just starts walking through him and starts just finding his body and slowing him down and slowly systematically breaking him down? Maybe he won't knock him out, but then frustration starts to kick in on his side. And now all of a sudden that fluid boxing that we're so used to seeing, he's kind of going through all these different game plans because he can't figure out, what do I got to do to get this guy out of here? So that's another thing. On the Canelo side, it's kind of the same thing though. Another question mark is, what if he can't find him? When he fought the Cuban, his last fight against the Cuban fighter, he couldn't find the guy. He was getting frustrated. He started loading up on punches. He was calling him over. Come on, let's fight. And now you're talking to a guy with Crawford, who's a master technician, a master magician. What if Canelo can't actually find him and he's just dancing around the ring the whole night? So when I talk to you about these fights, as great as these fights seem on paper, and they seem great. Look at their resumes; they're fantastic on paper. Sometimes they're not all. Don't sit back and say, we're about to witness one of the greatest fights we've ever seen. This fight can go a couple ways. And from a betting perspective, I want you guys to understand that this is a perfect example when, despite who you think is going to win the fight, despite who you think you want to win the fight, there are examples of you got to go where the value is. Okay. And now when you're looking at a guy like Canelo Alvarez and you see majority of his fights are minus 1,000, minus 1,500, minus 2,500. I know against a Cuban guy, I think it was like minus 2,500. And I picked him to win by decision, and people thought I was nuts. And that's because people don't understand the different styles of fighting. I said, he's fighting a Cuban guy. He's fighting a guy who's not going to allow him to hit him. He's doing this on purpose. This fight's going to the cards. It went to the cards, and we hit that on plus money. In a situation like this, you got to look at the value and say, okay, well, we usually get Canelo at this price. He's the bigger guy. He's got the better chin. He's been in 5 or 6 more stadium fights. Crawford's only been in, I think, 1 or 2 stadium fights on a platform this big. He's got a lot of things going in his direction. So if we get him at maybe 160, 165, depending on where the line ends tomorrow, maybe like 145, maybe there's a little value there on Canelo. And then if you're looking at the comeback and you're saying, well, there's only like plus 135, all these hills that Crawford has to climb, we're only getting them at like plus 135 or plus 140, whatever the price are. You might say, I don't want to pull the trigger on that. But if now the line starts moving and now you're getting plus 180, plus 190, plus 200, getting near the closing cost now you got something to play with. Now you're saying, I ain't touching Canelo at 2-1 odds, but I do look at, this line at plus, 180 plus for the greatest, pound for pound boxer in our time right now. Like, I'll take a shot on that. So like, you got to really systematically functionalize your wagering for this fight. I will have my wagers for this fight at the madlabmma.com. So if you want the wagers for this fight, you can go over there and you can see where I'm going with it from a prop perspective, because there are a couple props I do like on this. From a pick perspective, I will give you my lean. I'm actually going with the upset. I'm going to go with Crawford here. I'm going to stick to my constitution, and I'm going to stick to Crawford being able to functionalize his boxing a little bit, not to confuse Canelo, but to kind of sting him at range early, get his jab working, get his footwork working, and kind of let Canelo come towards him. And the more you're getting the guy to come towards you in boxing, the more energy you're expending. And the more energy you expend, we all know, people who watch Canelo know that the second half of the fight, he starts to kind of digress a little bit. He starts to lean up against the ropes. He kind of starts shelling up. He fires back. He'll start like slightly calling you in. Like, those are all bad signs. Those are like him telling you, yeah, come on, let's see if you could burn yourself a little bit too. So, and I think that if the fight is close, okay, if the fight is close in the 6th round, going in, hitting over, bridging that gap into the 7th round, if this fight is close, I just think Crawford, when he hits that switch that I told you about, that's when he puts it in gear. I think he's just going to outbox him. I think he's going to outbox him with volume. I think he's going to just outwork him. I think he's going to start getting a little comfortable in there. And I think that it's going to be a little bit downhill for Canelo at that point, where he's really going to get frustrated. He's going to start loading up on shots. He's going to try looking for a kill shot. And Crawford's too smart for that. Like, Crawford's very, very hard to hit. He's very intelligent, and like I said, he doesn't care about the crowd. He doesn't care about entertaining the crowd. That's why a lot of people haven't heard of him, in the casual arena, because he doesn't care. He's about winning. This guy's about winning at all costs, staying composed, and winning at all costs. So I think he can absolutely pull off a decision here. This is my concern with this fight, and I want you guys to understand this. Canelo Alvarez has been known to get a lot of leans on the judges' scorecards. A lot. When he fought Triple G, I don't know if you ever watched that fight. Absolutely lost that fight. There was no way he won that fight. They gave it to him. There was multiple fights that Canelo had fought that were much closer than the cards indicated. So my fear in this is that we are all watching this fight, and it goes to the cards, and we say he won that fight. Crawford won that fight. Good fight, close fight, but Crawford won that fight, and the judges give it to Canelo. So that's another thing you got to be careful of. A lot of people are saying, the real boxing purists that I talk to, they're saying that he's got to finish him or bust. I think there is some sentiment to that, but then I don't think he can finish Canelo. I think the only way he finishes Canelo is if it's by a barrage of punches where the ref steps in. The ref is not stepping in on Canelo. It's just not happening. They will not allow their golden boy to go out like that. Like, he's either going to go out flat on his face, or he's not going out at all. So don't expect the ref to step in and call it all. It's not going to happen. They're going to give Canelo every opportunity to fight his way to a decision, or possibly even knock out Crawford, because that's a plausible possibility as well. But that's my only fear. My only fear is that the power is going to be a little bit too much for him, where Canelo maybe does find him and starts breaking him down at the body, and that it does go to the cards, and it's a card that we're looking at. We're saying, yeah, it was a close fight, but 7-5 Crawford, and they give it to Canelo. So you got to be very, very careful with these fights. But my official pick is I'm going to go Crawford by a very close decision that I probably will be robbed of. So take what you will for that. Another fight I want to talk about, more exciting fight real quick before we close this out, is Fernando Vargas Jr. versus Callum Walsh, two guys that are very good prospects. This is a fight that absolutely should be watched. Both of these kids are very good. I had the opportunity to watch Callum Walsh fight in Long Beach, and I'll be honest with you, when I first watched him fight, I wasn't super impressed. And me and Bush had literally ringside watching this kid fight, and he did some nice things. You could see he had skill and he had talent, and he had upside. And something with Dana White really likes this kid. He put a lot of money behind him. He's pushing this kid. So there's definitely something there. And as time went on, I've been watching this kid fight, and he does have something there. Like, he does. He's a very good boxer. He utilizes the angles of the cage really well. He utilizes all the real estate. He knows how to engage. He knows when to get out. He's well ahead of his time for a 24-year-old kid. The problems I do have with him in his fights is he can be a little bit showy. He does drop his hands a lot. And the one thing in boxing is especially if you're fighting a puncher, you don't want to make that mistake. Like, you don't want to engage that way. And he does it a lot. I mean, I've seen numerous fights where even the fight I was at, I was telling Anthony, I was like, bro, his fucking hands are down to his knees. Like, you're going to get to a level of competition, almost like in the UFC or in any MMA organization, where you're going to fight these guys that they're going to find ways to bury a hatchet within that. You know what I mean? And you got to be careful. So what does Dana White do? This is where the genius of Dana White moves into boxing, right? So Dana White gets his kid, Callum Walsh, who he loves, and he's walking him slowly, and he's giving him these competitions, and he's flying under the radar, putting him on UFC Fight Pass and stuff like that, building his brand. And he says, all right, well, now we're going to put him on a big stage. Now we're going to put him on the stage with, Canelo and Crawford. This is where we're going to make this kid's star shine. Who do we give him? Well, you can't give him like a really, really like great fighter in the division, somebody who's super experienced, even if he has a mediocre record, who just has a lot of tread in the ring, has these little tricks. We got to give him a prospect. So who can we give him? I know who we can give him. We can give him Fernando Vargas' son, Fernando Vargas Jr. What a name. For the Vargas name, the whole Vargas family, they're embedded in boxing. Everybody knows Fernando Vargas. Let's give him Fernando Vargas' Jr. son. He's 17-0 with 17 KOs. This is perfect. And he's also an aging prospect because Fernando Vargas Sr. walked his son for a long time. I think he walked him a little too much, but Fernando Vargas' excuses, look what they did to me. Yes, was I a 4 or 5-time world champion? Absolutely was. But they threw me to the lions. I had to fight for my food. Different era in boxing. His father doesn't want to make the same mistake with his sons, Emilio and Fernando. Like, he just doesn't want to make that. So he has walked him, but he's dismantling all his people. He's got a lot of power, this kid. Like, Fernando Vargas Jr. hits with a lot of power. One-shot knockout power. He fights long. He has a lot of his father's aggression and prowess, but ultimately he is a little bit flat-footed. Where he could catch Callum Walsh is if he catches Callum Walsh's hands down. If they watch any kind of film on him and they can figure out a way to get in or create a trap to make him walk onto a couple big punches, you're going to see Callum Walsh chin tested, because we have really never seen his chin tested. But at the end of the day, when you look at the business of Dana White, his track record, the business of just combat sports in general, this is a fight where Dana White is absolutely utilizing that blueprint to say, look, we're going to get this boy over the edge. We're going to put him in this big arena fight under this big, banner with all the eyes on him. This is a spot where we can promote Fernando Vargas, the father, the Aztec warrior. We can promote him and say, this is his son he's fighting. Undefeated 17-0, 17 knockouts. Like, this is it. This is how we get this kid up into a title shot. That's his rhyme and reasoning, and I'm going with it. I want Fernando Vargas Jr. to win this fight. I do. I've always liked his father. I like what he's doing with his kids. I think all his kids are pretty well documented as far as boxing prowess and stuff like that. But I just don't think he has enough technical wise to keep up with Callum Walsh if he doesn't catch him. So it's really like catch him or bust. And I think Dana White's a little bit smarter than that here with Callum Walsh. So I'm going to pick Callum Walsh by decision, but there's really not much juice on the, meat on the bone in this fight. And the last thing I just want to talk about before I let you guys go, and I appreciate you guys hanging around for, 25 minutes or so, is, I seen a press conference with Dana White, and I actually even chimed in on it with, a couple of reporters asking him some really, really hard questions. And I initially, I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, yeah, they're asking him these hard questions about the Muhammad Ali Act and stuff like that. And they're questioning him about the lawsuits and stuff. And he couldn't really answer them. He's like, if you want to have an interview with me, you can have an interview with me and we could do it quietly, because he kind of knows, right? He kind of knows that, and is the boxing media is much different than the MMA media. The MMA media, they're kind of new legs. They're kids that are just coming in. They're YouTubers. Boxing media is completely different. These guys, Dan Rafael, like, these guys have been here for decades. These guys know what the fuck they're doing, know what kind of questions to ask. So all of a sudden now there's a little bit turmoil that he's intruding in boxing, and that's where I disagree. So I just want to explain this to you, and then I'll let you guys go, and I want you to understand what he's trying to do and why it is a good thing for boxing. If you look at the NFL, you look at the NBA, you look at MLB, you look at all these things, there's a central nucleus. There is somebody that needs to be answered to. Okay, UFC, Dana White, NFL, Goodell. Like, there's people that need to be answered to in these organizations. Okay, it's just not like, WBA is going to make a rule. WBC is going to do this. WBA is going to do this. The IBF, the IBF. Like, in boxing, we don't have a centralized organization. We don't have a centralized unit that makes decisions, or a centralized promotion that makes decisions. Like, go speak to, go speak to them. Like, we don't have that. You know what I mean? And I think in boxing, it's very important to have that, because everything is running with chickens without a heads. Like, you have Matchroom Boxing trying to compete with, with Golden Boy. You have Top Rank trying to compete with PBC. Like, you're competing with each other under the same umbrella. Doesn't make sense. Like, yes, you have UFC, you have Bellator, but they're completely different umbrellas. They're completely different. You have these promotions competing with each other for fighters. I have this fighter, you have this fighter, you have that. So technically, it's like Bellator, PFL, UFC, LFA having a world war competing with each other. It doesn't make any sense. So what we need is somebody with the resources, like Turkey. He's got the resources. Somebody with the ability to build under that this beautiful umbrella, which is Dana White, and then a motor in Nick Khan. Those three guys can be the nucleus, can be the guys who get the majority of the really good fighters, but also dictate terms on how this is all going to work, how the money's going to be split, how everything's going to work. And boxing will 1000% be so much more organized and so much more better. So before you shit on Dana White for doing what he's doing, try to understand his vision. He's trying to organize, almost like back in the day when the mafia was around in New York and Chicago and stuff. Like, there was never something called organized crime. Okay, there was one guy, a Jewish guy out of New York, that organized it all, and then it was called organized crime. It's the same thing with boxing. It's the only sport that doesn't have a centerpiece, that doesn't have a nucleus that's kind of calling the shots under the whole umbrella. Right now, it's just the Wild West. It's always been the Wild West. So I think if you give them a chance, to see what their vision is, what they're trying to do, you might understand a little bit more. Is it going to work? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't work. But I think the idea, the concept, and the people behind it are going in the right direction. So we'll see what happens. So I appreciate you guys for coming by and listening to my breakdown on both of those fights. There's a couple other good fights on there as well. If you want my wagers for both fights, the UFC, all the boxing, for the whole entire boxing card, there's a couple other fights on that card that I will be breaking down as well. Go to the madlabmma.com. It's all free with your UFC, with your MMA subscription. You get NFL. I got 7 guys doing NFL. You get all boxing, not just this fight. We're one of the only companies, if not the only company, doing boxing, and plus UFC. But you get, you pay for the MMA membership, and it's under one umbrella. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate Pat for allowing me to do this. He knows how much I love this sport and how much I want to get more eyes on it. So I appreciate you letting me use your platform, Pat. And Dane, I appreciate you on your day off coming in and doing this for me. So have fun this weekend, guys, and good luck.